Hello friends and fellow gamers, it's MKxJUMP here, and in today's video we're going to be checking out the heroes in angellegion and how you should be building your team. This is for all different areas of the game because a lot of the combat in angellegion is 6v6, whether it's campaign or whether it's against players in PvP. So we're going to be breaking down what heroes I think are good, how you should be focusing on your team depending on what artifact you're using on Maya, and also taking a look at the different possible combinations of heroes you could be and should be running on your team. This should also give you some ideas of what heroes to focus on, what heroes to aim for, and the particular parts of the game you should be focusing your attention to try and build the perfect team for you. So guys, without further ado, let's go check out today's video. With a large list of heroes in the game, it can be a little overwhelming to decide who you should be running in your team. Now, the first thing I want to mention, guys, is CC, which is a common term used in games such as this, which means crowd control. Crowd control is a fundamental part of all team building because it basically stops your opponent from doing anything. So stun, petrify, sleep, all different abilities like that are strong and will stop your opponent's heroes from either taking turns or using skills or energy. So examples of CC in this game are heroes that can stun, heroes that can steal energy, and also heroes that can silence. So when you should be building your team, you need to be focusing on the CC aspects because crowd control is a huge factor in what's going to win you games. For starters, the most common CC hero in the game is Dragon Knight. Now, Dragon Knight, you can dress to look however you want. This is what I make my Dragon Knight look like because I think the gold aesthetic is pretty cool. The key part of Dragon Knight that makes her so good is her active skill, which will happen when she has 4 points of energy. This active skill will hit all opponents with an 80% chance to silence each one it hits, which is fantastic because silence will stop an opponent from using their active skill, which is potentially what will hurt and shut you down. Turning off an opponent's active skill is huge regardless what the game mode is, apart from Simulated Alpha where you cannot CC the boss. So, if you're facing campaign, for example, and you're finding that the enemies you're facing are dealing lots of damage to you because they're using their active skills and killing your heroes, being able to silence them is really good and can help you get past a lot of levels. So Dragon Knight is definitely a hero I recommend, and I would even go so far as to say Dragon Knight is probably the best hero you could SS first, because she is just so good all across the board. So Dragon Knight is one option when you're considering who could be a CC hero on your team. The second option, which I also use, is Deadly Shadow or Miwa Suzuki. Deadly Shadow has a passive skill that means she will stun opponents if she crits them with her active skill. This can go up to an 100% stun chance if you get her to a high enough level, which is amazing. Her active skill will hit all of the frontline opponents and has a very high chance to crit if you run her with a Katana Maya. So if you're using Katana Maya, I think Deadly Shadow is a must-have hero if you're focusing on building the best team you can, because Deadly Shadow, if she crits, will stun opponents. So you want to give her a set of Nightmare gear that increases her crit chance. That will then boost the chance that you crit, and of course make her stun your opponent on the front line. Stun is better than silence because stun means your opponent cannot do anything on their turn. They can't do a normal attack and they cannot do an active skill. They're just stuck. Nothing happens on their turn. It just skips their go and the stun wears off, assuming the stun lasts 1 round. So that's fantastic. So if you're using a Katana Maya, I highly recommend a Deadly Shadow on your team because Deadly Shadow is going to stun those frontline opponents, which is really, really good. Deadly Shadow isn't the only hero that is capable of stunning the front line. There's also Time Guardian or Havas. If you use Time Guardian with a Scythe Maya, the stun chance of her active skill is taken to 40%. If you combine this with her additional passives, for example, first we have Deep Fear, which increases the stun chance all the way up to 20, so that takes us to 60%, and then finally, Crit Effect. If you crit an opponent, you can take it all the way up to 100% total. Basically, it's similar to Deadly Shadow. If Time Guardian crits, you have a very high chance of stunning the opponent. The difference between Time Guardian and Deadly Shadow is, though, you don't need to crit to guarantee the stun. The difference is, if she crits, she has a 40% extra chance, but still, if you don't crit, there's still a 60% chance you stun that opponent. This means that you still want to build your Time Guardian for crit, because at the end of the day, 100% stun is amazing, but it also gives you the option of not necessarily worrying if you crit or not. This makes Time Guardian an excellent choice for any team that is using Scythe Maya, because Scythe Maya is what you need to get that 100% stun chance. However, if you're not using Scythe Maya, Time Guardian still has a 90% chance to crit, so if you're still curious about a hero to add to your team and you're not really focused on an artifact and you're able to build an SS Time Guardian, get her to have all her skills maxed out, which requires her to be level 160, you can totally do this. Like, she is a fantastic hero on any team. 90% stun chance if she crits is really good, but of course running her with that Scythe Maya is going to be really strong. So as you probably know, heroes attack in order, so you want to put this CC hero, whether you choose Time Guardian, Deadly Shadow, or someone else, you want to be running them in slot 1 if you can, because that means they'll attack first, which means they'll be able to stun your opponent before they do anything. But because a lot of people, especially in PvP, are going to be putting their key heroes that are going to stun you in slot 1, there's one other hero I wanted to talk about called Dark Shooter. Dark Shooter has the active skill, if you use her with a Blitz Sniper Maya, that she can stun one hero on the front line with an 100% chance. What's different with this than the other stun heroes we've checked out is this effect, if used with a Blitz Sniper Maya, cannot be resisted. So that's huge. So basically, if you run a Dark Shooter in the same slot as your opponent's CC hero, if your Dark Shooter goes first, she can stun that opponent, guaranteed, 100% chance, cannot be resisted. And that means you yourself are not going to get stunned by them, which means your heroes are going to go off. So Dark Shooter is a fantastic way of shutting down your opponent's CC heroes and a good anti-meta choice for PvP teams. The only issue is Dark Shooter only hits one opponent, which means she's not going to be as useful in campaign or other game modes where you want to stun a lot of opponents or silence a lot of opponents. Perhaps if you were using Dark Shooter, you'd want to run her along a Dragon Knight, because Dragon Knight is going to be able to silence all the opponents, whilst Dark Shooter is going to be focusing on that one opponent that's going to be a bit problematic on the front line. So what type of artifact you give to your Maya is going to make a huge difference on what CC heroes you want to choose. Any team can take and do well with Dragon Knight, and actually I'd say the same thing for Time Guardian, who can go up to 90% regardless of what the artifact is. However, Time Guardian is going to be significantly better if you use her alongside a Scythe Maya, because that 100% chance is very, very nice. Additionally, if you're running a Deadly Shadow, you'll definitely want to be using a Katana Maya, just like I am, because that Deadly Shadow is then going to be able to have a really, really good chance of critting opponents, because Deadly Shadow's crit chance is increased by 40% if you use a Katana Maya alongside her. That will result in more crits with your Deadly Shadow, and therefore more stuns, which is exactly what you're looking for. So that covers crowd control, which is the first aspect you want to be focusing on for your team, and is actually probably the most important. If you're struggling, a crowd control hero is probably going to be the difference between you winning and losing. However, that's not the only thing we're going to be focusing on. There are other types of heroes you will need on your team to do well. For starters, your heroes that do crowd control your opponents need energy to use their active skills, and that's where two heroes will come into play. First off is Magic Arrow, who's able to give energy to the heroes in the same column as her. So what you want to do is stick your CC hero in slot 1 and then put Magic Arrow in slot 4, which means they'll line up in the same column as each other. That means Magic Arrow is safe at the back, giving energy to the CC hero who will be in front of her, and she'll just be fueling that hero with energy. Once Magic Arrow is maxed, she'll be giving 3 points of energy every single round, because she fills herself with 3 points of energy, then gets an additional point of energy at the end of the turn, which means Magic Arrow is always going to have 4 points of energy from herself on her turn, which means she's constantly recharging her energy and also charging your CC hero's energy. This means your CC hero is going to get active skill after active skill after active skill and hopefully lock down your opponent's heroes, whether it's a Dragon Knight that wants to silence everyone or a Deadly Shadow or Time Guardian that wants to stun the front line. You're going to do very well if you boost them up with a Magic Arrow. However, Magic Arrow is not the only energy-giving hero in the game. Raging Angel is a fantastic hero who also gives energy to your team. Unlike Magic Arrow, Raging Angel's skill will give energy to heroes in the same row. So if your CC hero's on the front line, you're going to want to put your Raging Angel on the front line as well. But don't let that deter you. You can actually run Raging Angel and Magic Arrow together and just get that energy fueling in to the one hero. I personally prefer Magic Arrow though, because Magic Arrow is guaranteed to give it to heroes in the same column, herself and the hero in front or behind. However, Raging Angel will only give it to 2 allies, and unfortunately there's always 3 allies in a row, which means she may not be recharging herself, or she may not be recharging the CC hero you want her to. If you have two CC heroes on the front line, it's not so bad, and Ranging Angel can share that energy across, and that's actually really good. However, some teams will prefer Magic Arrow, and I'd say for most teams, Magic Arrow is the better choice. So that's CC and energy covered. The next aspect of your team that you'll definitely want is a healer. A great part of the game is you get Gentle Healer, who is an A tier healer, for free. However, when you get into the later game, you'll want to be having an S tier healer on your team. So Gentle Healer will be great early on, but you can only get her to silver. So let's take a look at S tier healers and the difference between them. There are 3 to choose from, and they're all available in different areas of the game. First, we'll start with Mental Healing, who is probably the easiest one to pick up. Mental Healing will heal your team, which is good, and she also has the chance to bring an ally back to life after they've died. That's a really, really powerful ability, which can synergize nicely with heroes who do things when they die, such as Swordmaster. Bringing back a hero could be the clutch thing to save you if you need your tank to be resurrected, or you need Maya to come back to make your combo skills work more effectively. So keeping a Mental Healer on your team is a really good choice. One way to easily get copies of Mental Healing is from the Legion shop. You can buy 10 of her genes every single day, and it will cost you 1,000 of the contribution currency you get in the Legion. That means over the course of 10 days you can purchase 100 of her genes and get a copy. So every 10 days, in theory, you can be getting yourself a copy of Mental Healing, which is a great way for free-to-play players to get their hands on one of the best healers in the game. The next healer I'm going to talk about is the one I personally use, and that's Sakura Dancer. The reason I like Sakura Dancer is she doesn't revive like Mental Healing. Instead, she has an ability called Purify, which means she can remove debuffs on your heroes. Whether it's attack debuffs in Simulated Alpha, or if it's being stunned or petrified or silenced by some gross effects, she has an 80% chance to remove all allies' debuffs. And I mean all debuffs, not just some, every single debuff they have, which is huge. So if you're facing someone who's going to be giving you damage over time, or someone who's going to be reducing your attack, she'll get rid of it. If you're stunned, if you're silenced, she'll get rid of it. She's a really good hero for removing debilitating effects from your heroes. Additionally, she is the only S tier healer that has healing that scales with your hero's max HP, which means she can potentially do a lot of healing to your heroes. That's not to say the other healers can't heal as well, it's just a nice feature that she has to make her healing that little bit more potent. The final S tier healer that I want to talk about is Ghost Princess. Unlike the other 2 healers, she doesn't have a special effect that's going to make your team slightly better, whether it's Revive or whether it's the ability to remove debilitating effects. Instead, Ghost Princess has an ability called Dimension Crack, which means she has up to a 12% chance to be immune to damage when she receives it, which means you can actually comfortably place her on a team and not worry about her dying, because there's a 12% chance she'll just ignore any damage. Combine that with something like Dodge, and there's a very good chance she's not going to take much damage at all. When you get her to level 160, she'll also increase her own energy every time she avoids damage from this ability. So that's going to be a great way of her getting more energy, which means she's going to do her active skill more often, which means she's then going to be healing your team more often, which is a really, really nice thing. Personally, of the 3 S tier healers, I think Ghost Princess is the weakest though. Even though she can avoid damage and she has probably more chance of doing her active skill, I personally think that the ability to remove debilitating effects on Sakura Dancer, or the ability to revive one of your fallen teammates, is much more powerful than what Mei can do. That said, Ghost Princess is still a fantastic healer for you to have, and if you get S tier copies of her, she is a good choice for you to go ahead and build. The great thing with all 3 healers in the game is they're all accessible and purchasable for all players, regardless of what stage of the game you're in. Whether you're free to play or a heavy spender, you can pick them up fairly easily. For example, I've already mentioned you can buy Mental Healing from the Legion store, but also from the Arena store you can buy copies of Ghost Princess. Now personally, I prefer to buy Advanced Recruit devices, which is what I'm going to do right now, but you can, if you want to, pick up Ghost Princess genes, which is also a good thing to do. What you want to decide though, as a free-to-play player or maybe a light spender, is which healer you're going to focus on. Because Ghost Princess is available from Arena, Legion currency will get you Mental Healing, but if you do well in the Simulated Alpha, you can actually get Sakura Dancer as a reward. Every single time the settlement comes through from Simulated Alpha, you'll be getting a certain amount of Sakura Dancer genes, which for me is massive because I currently hold the #1 spot in our server, which means every 3 days I'm getting 30 genes of Sakura Dancer. Then again, that's only as many as you'd get from mental healing if you were buying them every day too, so it's nothing special. It's not going to change the rate that I'm getting these shards through. But also, whatever rank you are, you're going to be getting some copies of Sakura Dancer. So long as you make it into the top 20, you're going to be getting 10 copies every time this settles. And also, by having Sakura Dancer, you're able to remove the debuffs in Simulated Alpha, which means you're going to be doing more damage in Simulated Alpha than everybody else. So she'll feed into herself. By having Sakura Dancer, you increase your Simulated Alpha damage, which means you increase the number of Sakura Dancer shards you're getting, which increases the chance then that you can get her to Gold, that you can get her to SS tier, and beyond. So I think it's really nice that the developers of this game have made it accessible for you to get a healer, because a healer is a fundamental part of every team. Every team needs a healer because it means you can take more damage, you can take more hits, it means you can last in later rounds in different game modes, it means you can live longer in Simulated Alpha, it means you can cut through game modes like Expedition with much more ease, and also in PvP, a lot of other people are going to have healers as well, and healers will give you the edge. They're a very important component for every team. So we've talked about healers, we've talked about CC, we've talked about energy heroes. The next hero I want to focus on is Maya, because every team has to run Maya. So I've already mentioned the artifact you choose is going to be a very important decision in which heroes you run. But I've only mentioned that in regards to CC heroes. But actually, as you hopefully know, there's a lot of heroes that can combo with the artifact you've chosen. If I remove my camera, you'll see that there is a list of 5 heroes that combo with each artifact. I mentioned this previously in my beginner's guide, but I wanted to mention it again, because actually selecting one of these heroes, or maybe 2 of these heroes to use alongside the chosen CC hero you have, you can flesh out your team. Remember, we've only talked about 3 slots in your team. That's your healer, your CC hero, and also your energy giver. Padding out your team with additional combo heroes is a really good way to improve the performance of your heroes. For example, if you're running a katana team, Shura Killer is a fantastic hero to have. If you take a look at her combo skill, she can deal 672% of attack damage to a single hero on the backline. And typically the backline is where people are putting their energy heroes and also where people are going to be putting their healers. So if you can snipe someone's healer away, you're going to instantly give yourself advantage. And 672% of attack is massive. If you make Shura Killer crit as well, or you build her really aggressively, that's going to be fantastic. Not to mention she increases her own damage boost the less health she has, so you can actually put her on the front line. When she receives damage, she can get even more damage boost, and therefore she's going to rack up to be a very powerful single target killer. Shura Killer is fantastic on a katana team. On a rifle team, I really like the idea of using Butterfly Girl Hannah. She has the capability of removing energy from your opponents, which is huge because this is going to stop them from using their active skills. And as you know, active skills are either going to deal a ton of damage or CC you, so being able to shut down an opponent's energy supply is brilliant. So I really like the idea of using her on your sniper teams. And for those of you that really like using the Scythe because you're using a Time Guardian, I'd be curious about checking out a hero called Filial Spirit, or Mulan. She is able to deal a lot of individual strikes against opponents that, thanks to her Endless Battle passive, increase every time you repeat an attack on an opponent. So when your opponent's starting to lose heroes and you're focusing those attacks on individual heroes as they strike out, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage with Mulan. So if you can keep her alive, she can do a lot of damage to your opponents. Not to mention that this damage boost is going to come through and can stack up, look, up to 4 times. I don't think there's a time limit on this either. So progressively, she's going to buff herself up to be very strong and then deal a ton of damage to your opponent. Not to mention, I think she actually looks pretty damned cool as well. However, those are just suggestions if you were looking for a fun hero to add to your team. If you really want to know who I think the best hero to have on your team is, it's Phantom Blade. Regardless what team you use her on, Phantom Blade is going to be phenomenal. The reason I say regardless is because you never ever want to use her active skill. Phantom Blade has the skill Energy Transform, which means for every point of energy she has, her normal attack will increase by 15% of damage. And that means, guys, you just keep on using her basic attack, as she'll get more and more and more damage, and that's going to be huge for taking down opponents. Whether it's a single enemy, you just go boop, basic attack, dead. Also, guys, every time another hero on your team does a basic attack, there is a 50% chance that Phantom Blade will follow up with that attack, which means you're dealing way more damage. This is going to be great for simulated alpha, and it's also fantastic against campaign because you can just go into manual mode, make sure that Phantom Blade is keeping her energy, and she will just chip in attacks every now and then, taking down opponents to much lower levels of health, which means it's easier for your heroes to clean up. Combine that with a fantastic CC core, good healers, Maya with a good choice of artifact, and you're on for a win. I personally like to have a Katana Maya with Phantom Blade behind her because different artifacts buff depending on where they are. If you don't know what I mean, go check out the beginner's guide for Angel Legion. But if you put a hero in the same column as a Maya with a Katana, they're going to get a bonus, so that's why I like to have my Phantom Blade behind my Maya. Finally, as you hopefully know, frontline heroes take the most hits. So you don't want to just use your frontline heroes as CC heroes to stun your opponents, you also want to have a tank or a guard hero that can protect you from lots of damage. Fortunately, Dragon Knight is a guard hero, and because she's a CC hero, you also want to put her at the front, which makes Dragon Knight an excellent choice for a frontline tank and CC hero. Another hero that can make for a good guard is Saint of Orleans on a rifle team, and for you early players, Executioner is really good defensively as well, because she increases her own damage resist by 40%. Often though, what will make a good defensive hero is the gear you give them, so I'd encourage you to equip them with armor that will give them more damage resistance or perhaps even crit resist. Now that's something I wanted to talk about. Hopefully you know and have noticed that a lot of these heroes rely on crit to get their CC off, whether it's Time Guardian or Deadly Shadow. So a good way to avoid getting stunned or CC'd by a Deadly Shadow or a Time Guardian is with crit resist. Crit resist armor, such as the Paladin armor, is great because it reduces the chance that you get critted by your opponent, and a crit is going to be what's going to increase those stun chances. So actually, I'd argue that Time Guardian is the best CC hero in the game because her CC still works if she doesn't crit, whereas Deadly Shadow can be stopped by some very strategically placed crit resist. So when building your team, I'd give your CC hero crit resistance unless they themselves are reliant on crit, and in that case I'd give them crit armor. That's why I'm using the Paladin set on my Dragon Knight, because Dragon Knight doesn't need to crit to silence opponents, but I also would appreciate if she didn't get stunned herself if I'm ever facing a Deadly Shadow. There's lots of other great heroes in the game to choose from. For example, Valkyrie is able to do multiple attacks against opponents, which is really good, and she works well on a Scythe team, but can also do well in any team at all. You also have a lot of interesting heroes you can choose from. Shining Girl, for example, has the ability to remove your opponent's dodge ability, which is great. She'll increase the chance that you hit them, and that's very, very useful because dodging is a pain. If you want to go for a dodgy team, though, Punk Guitar is able to increase the chance that your heroes dodge, so I would give her also a dodgy set of armor, such as the Saint gear, because that means she's going to be more slippery herself. Hopefully you can take what I've said today and use it to build a good team. Don't forget, you're going to need a CC hero, you're going to need someone that can feed energy to that CC hero, you're going to need a healer, and you're going to need the correct artifact on Maya. Don't forget, having a Phantom Blade is excellent if you can squeeze her in, and also picking a hero that can be a good combo hero alongside Maya is great. Whether it's going to be someone like Valkyrie that can do a decent active skill, or Swordmaster who can buff your team if you use a katana. Maybe it'll even be a Shora Killer to snipe off those opponents with that very, very powerful and high damage backline attack. If you have any questions about Angel Legion, don't be afraid to get in touch in the comments section down below, or join us on Discord. And if you've enjoyed this video, thank the developers of Angel Legion for sponsoring it and making this video possible. You should go check out Angel Legion if you haven't tried it yet. You can find a link down below in the description if you want to download the game. It's always a pleasure to bring you videos like this, and more Angel Legion videos will come every weekend, so thank you so much for catching it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to catch videos in the future, or if you want to catch something else, you can find something here on the side of the screen. In fact, I'll link the beginner's guide that I mentioned a few times in this video, just in case any of you haven't seen it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you have a great week, and happy idling.